Ever wish you could treat yourself with a bit more kindness, like you would a good friend?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. The whole idea of self-compassion.
Oh, interesting.
We're exploring Kristin Neff's book.
Okay.
Self-compassion, the proven power of being kind to yourself. And trust me, it's packed with fascinating research and real-life stories. It really makes you think.
What's so powerful about Neff's approach is that she combines that scientific evidence with those relatable anecdotes.
Right.
Making it both credible and engaging for the reader.
It's not just some touchy-feely concept. There's real science behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to explore why self-compassion is so important, how it differs from self-esteem,
right,
and most importantly, how we can actually start being kinder to ourselves in our everyday lives.
It's not just about understanding what self-compassion is, but how to actually cultivate it and make it a part of your life.
Exactly. And Neff starts the book with this scenario that I think a lot of us can relate to.
Okay.
Imagine a couple arguing about groceries. Who was supposed to pick up what, who forgot the list, the whole blame game.
Oh, yeah.
Something we've probably all experienced at some point.
It highlights how quick we are to judge both ourselves and others, and how that judgment can really get in the way of communication and happiness.
Totally. And, Neff even admits that she was initially skeptical about self-compassion. She was like, won't I just become lazy and let myself off the hook if I'm too nice to myself? Yeah. I think that's a fear a lot of us have.
It's a common misconception, and one that the book addresses head on. Self-compassion isn't about lowering our standards or becoming complacent.
So how does she explain that? I mean, how can being kind to yourself actually lead to personal growth?
Well, she shares a powerful analogy in the book. Imagine a homeless man struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Would we withhold compassion just because his situation might be partly due to his own choices? Probably not. So why do we hold ourselves to a different standard?
That's a really good point. It makes you realize that compassion shouldn't be conditional. We all deserve kindness, regardless of our circumstances.
Exactly. And Neff also shares her own personal turning point, discovering self-compassion through Buddhist teachings during a really difficult time in her life. It literally transformed her perspective.
Okay, so she had this personal experience that changed her views. But what about the science behind it? What's the evidence that self-compassion actually works?
Well, there's a growing body of research showing that self-compassion is linked to a whole range of benefits. Reduced anxiety and depression, increased resilience, improved relationships, even better physical health.
Wow, that's impressive. So it's not just about feeling good, it actually has tangible benefits in our lives.
Precisely. And one of the key distinctions Neff makes is between self-compassion and self-esteem.
Okay.
That idea that we need sky-high self-esteem to succeed in life.
Yeah, we're constantly bombarded with messages about building self-esteem. But I've always found that kind of confusing. Like, how do you actually build self-esteem?
That's a great question, and one that Neff addresses in the book.
Okay.
She points out that self-esteem is often based on external validation and comparisons, like how good we are at something compared to other people, or how much praise we receive.
So it's kind of like that sugar high and crash you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We get a temporary boost from a compliment or achievement.
Right?
But then we're right back to chasing that next hit of validation.
Exactly. And this constant need for external approval can be exhausting and ultimately unsatisfying. It's like we're on a treadmill, always striving, never really feeling content.
That makes a lot of sense. So if self-esteem is so shaky, what's the alternative? Where does self-compassion fit in?
Self-compassion offers a different perspective. Instead of constantly judging ourselves and striving to be better than, self-compassion is about accepting ourselves, flaws and all.
But wouldn't that make us complacent? I mean, don't we need some level of self-criticism to motivate us to improve?
It's a common concern. But Neff argues that self-criticism actually backfires. When we're constantly beating ourselves up, we drain our energy and motivation. It's like trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of rocks.
Okay, I see your point. So if self-criticism is holding us back, how does self-compassion help us move forward?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine you have a friend who's struggling with something. Would you berate them and tell them they're not good enough?
Right.
Of course not. You'd offer them support and encouragement.
Right. You'd be there for them, listen to them, try to help them see the situation in a more positive light.
Exactly. And that's what self-compassion is all about. Treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we'd offer a friend. It's about being our own best cheerleader, especially when we're going through tough times.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about lowering our standards, it's about changing our approach.
Exactly. Self-compassion is about recognizing that we're all imperfect human beings, and that's okay. We don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and kindness, starting with love and kindness from ourselves.
This is so interesting. We've already uncovered so much about self-compassion, but I'm eager to dive deeper into the practical side of things.
Yeah.
How can we actually cultivate self-compassion in our daily lives?
That's where the real magic happens, and we'll explore that in detail in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
I can't wait. Welcome back. I'm really excited to keep exploring this whole self-compassion thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about the benefits, the science, and how it differs from self-esteem. But now I'm curious, how do we actually put it into practice?
That's a great question, and it's something Neff dedicates a large part of her book to. She offers a whole toolbox of techniques to help us cultivate self-compassion in our daily lives.
Okay, let's open up that toolbox.
Yeah.
What are some of the key techniques she suggests?
Well, one of the foundational practices is mindfulness. Have you ever noticed how your thoughts can just spiral out of control, especially when you're feeling stressed or anxious? Mindfulness is about hitting the pause button on that mental chatter.
So it's about quieting the mind, like meditation.
It's similar to meditation, but it's not necessarily about clearing your mind completely. It's more about becoming aware of your thoughts and feelings without judgment, just noticing them as they arise, like clouds passing through the sky.
I like that analogy. So instead of getting caught up in the storm of our thoughts, we can simply observe them from a distance.
Exactly. And Neff offers a simple but powerful exercise for cultivating mindfulness called noting practice.
Oh.
It involves simply labeling your thoughts and feelings as you experience them.
If I'm feeling anxious, I would just say to myself, feeling anxious.
Exactly. Or thinking about that deadline, feeling tightness in my chest. By naming these experiences, we create a little bit of space between ourselves and our reactions.
It's like we're taking a step back and observing our inner world with a more objective lens.
Precisely. And from that place of observation, we can then choose how we want to respond, rather than just reacting automatically.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we're giving ourselves the power to choose our response rather than being controlled by our emotions.
Exactly. And that's where self-compassion comes in. Once we've acknowledged our experience, we can then offer ourselves kindness and understanding.
Okay, so mindfulness is about creating space for self-compassion. But what are some other specific tools we can use to cultivate that self-kindness?
Well, one of my favorites is the self-compassion mantra. It's a simple but powerful phrase that we can repeat to ourselves when we're struggling.
A mantra, like a positive affirmation.
It's similar to an affirmation, but it's more focused on acknowledging our pain and offering our self-compassion. Neff suggests using these 4 phrases.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with the mantra.
The first phrase is, "This is a moment of suffering."
So we're just acknowledging that we're hurting.
Exactly. It's about validating our experience, reminding ourselves that it's okay to feel pain. The second phrase is, "Suffering is a part of life."
That's a good reminder. We all go through difficult times. It's part of the human experience.
Exactly. It helps us connect to our shared humanity, reminding us that we're not alone in our struggles. The third phrase is, "May I be kind to myself in this moment."
Okay, so we're shifting from acknowledging the pain to offering ourselves kindness.
Precisely. It's like extending a hand of compassion to ourselves, just as we would to a friend in need. And the final phrase is, "May I give myself the compassion I need."
I like that. It's about recognizing that we deserve compassion just as much as anyone else.
Exactly. And it's a powerful reminder that we have the capacity to offer that compassion to ourselves.
That mantra is really beautiful. I can see how repeating those phrases could be really helpful in shifting our mindset from self-criticism to self-kindness.
It's a simple practice, but it can be incredibly transformative. And the beauty of it is that you can use it anytime, anywhere, when you're feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, or just needing a little extra dose of self-love.
It's like having a portable toolkit for self-compassion. Okay, so we've got mindfulness and the self-compassion mantra. What else is in this toolbox?
Well, Neff also suggests using compassionate imagery.
Okay.
This involves visualizing a safe place and a compassionate figure who embodies unconditional love and understanding.
So we're creating a mental image of someone who offers us support and kindness.
Exactly. It could be a wise teacher, a loving parent, a spiritual figure, or even a pet. The key is to choose someone who evokes feelings of warmth, safety, and compassion.
I can see how that could be helpful, especially for people who struggle to access self-compassion directly. It's like borrowing compassion from an external source until we can cultivate it more fully within ourselves.
Exactly. And the more we practice these techniques, the more natural self-compassion will become. It's like building a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, so we've got mindfulness, the self-compassion mantra, and compassionate imagery. What other tools does Neff suggest?
Another powerful technique is the compassionate body scan. This is a guided meditation that involves bringing awareness to different parts of your body, noticing any sensations, and offering kindness and care to those areas.
So it's like a mindfulness practice specifically for the body.
Exactly. It's a wonderful way to connect with your physical experience in a gentle and loving way. And it can be especially helpful for people who hold a lot of tension or stress in their bodies.
I know I tend to carry a lot of tension in my shoulders. I could definitely use some compassionate body scans.
It's a great practice for cultivating a sense of safety and well-being within our own skin.
So we've got mindfulness, the self-compassion mantra, compassionate imagery, and the compassionate body scan. A whole arsenal of tools for cultivating self-compassion. But how does this all play out in our relationships with others? Does self-compassion have an impact on how we interact with the people we love?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in detail in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait to see how this all connects. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We've covered so much ground already in our deep dive into self-compassion. From understanding the science behind it to exploring those practical techniques like mindfulness and the self-compassion mantra. It's clear that being kinder to ourselves can have a profound impact on our well-being. But now I'm curious, how does this all translate to our relationships with others?
That's a great question, and it's one that Neff addresses in depth in her book. She argues that self-compassion is actually crucial for creating healthy and fulfilling relationships.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, when we're more at ease with ourselves, we're probably more likely to be patient and understanding with others.
Exactly. But it goes even deeper than that. Neff explains that when we practice self-compassion, we develop a deeper understanding of our own emotional patterns, those core issues that often get triggered in our relationships.
You mean those things that tend to make us overreact or get defensive, even when our partner might not have intended to hurt us?
Exactly. Neff calls them scars, these vestiges of past hurts and disappointments that can resurface in our current relationships.
Okay.
Think of it like this. We all have these sensitive spots, these emotional buttons that can get pushed, triggering old patterns of behavior.
So instead of blaming our partner for pushing our buttons, we can start to recognize that maybe it's our own unhealed wounds that are causing us to overreact.
Precisely. And that's where self-compassion comes in. Instead of criticizing ourselves for having these patterns, we can offer ourselves understanding and kindness. We can say to ourselves, this is hard, this is painful. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need.
Wow, that's powerful. So self-compassion isn't just about being nicer to ourselves. It's about becoming more aware of our own emotional baggage and how it impacts our relationships.
Exactly. And by understanding our own patterns, we can start to respond to our partners with more clarity and compassion. We're less likely to get caught up in the blame game and more likely to create a space for understanding and connection.
Neff also talks about the importance of understanding our partner's emotional patterns, right?
Absolutely. She uses the example of Diane and Eric, a couple struggling with Diane's controlling behavior.
Okay.
It turned out that Diane's need for control stemmed from a deep-seated fear of things going wrong, rooted in a traumatic experience from her past.
So instead of getting angry or frustrated with Diane's behavior, Eric tried to understand where it was coming from.
Exactly. Eric, instead of getting defensive or blaming Diane, recognized the pain and fear driving her actions. He encouraged her to practice self-compassion, which helped her address those core issues and ultimately improve their relationship.
That's a beautiful example of how self-compassion can ripple outwards, not just helping us, but also enhancing our ability to empathize with and support our loved ones.
It's like creating a safe space for each other to be vulnerable and imperfect without judgment or blame.
It sounds like self-compassion is really the foundation for healthy relationships.
Absolutely. And Neff also talks about the importance of setting healthy boundaries in relationships and how self-compassion can help us do that.
Right.
It's not about being a doormat or letting people walk all over us. It's about recognizing our own needs and limits and communicating those clearly and respectfully.
So it's about honoring ourselves and our needs while also being considerate of others.
Exactly. And this brings us to another important aspect of self-compassion that Neff discusses: self-appreciation.
Okay, self-appreciation. That's an interesting one. I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's almost like we're afraid to acknowledge our own strengths and accomplishments for fear of seeming arrogant or making others feel bad.
It's a common misconception. We live in a culture that often equates self-appreciation with narcissism. But Neff makes a really important distinction between self-appreciation and self-esteem.
So how does she differentiate the two?
She explains that self-esteem is often based on external validation and comparisons, while self-appreciation is about recognizing our inherent worth and celebrating our unique gifts and talents.
So it's not about puffing ourselves up or putting others down. It's about genuinely appreciating what we have to offer.
Exactly. And Neff draws on the Buddhist concept of mudita, which translates to sympathetic joy.
Sympathetic joy, what does that mean?
It's the ability to feel genuine happiness for others, to celebrate their successes and good fortune without a tinge of envy or resentment. It's like being able to truly share in the joy of others as if their happiness were our own. And this capacity for sympathetic joy strengthens our own sense of well-being and interconnectedness.
That's beautiful. So it's not a zero-sum game where someone else's happiness diminishes our own. We can all celebrate each other's wins.
Exactly. And Neff suggests that self-appreciation is essentially mudita directed inwards. It's about cultivating a sense of delight in our own positive qualities and accomplishments, just as we would delight in the good fortune it's theirs.
I love that. So instead of focusing on our flaws and shortcomings, we can shift our attention to what we appreciate about ourselves.
Exactly. And Neff offers some practical tips for cultivating self-appreciation. One of my favorites is keeping a gratitude journal, taking a few moments each day to reflect on the things we're grateful for.
Okay.
It could be something as simple as a beautiful sunset, a delicious meal, or a kind gesture from a stranger.
That's a great idea. It's easy to get caught up in the negative, but taking time to appreciate the good things in our lives can really shift our perspective.
Absolutely. And another practice Neff encourages is savoring, which is about consciously enjoying and extending pleasurable experiences. Instead of rushing through our day on autopilot, we can pause and truly appreciate the simple pleasures of life.
So it's about slowing down and really being present in those moments of joy.
Exactly. And by cultivating a sense of gratitude and savoring, we naturally enhance our capacity for self-appreciation.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I think Neff's book offers a really powerful message that self-compassion isn't a luxury or a sign of weakness. It's actually essential for our well-being, for creating healthy relationships, and for living a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely. By treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, we not only heal our own wounds, but we also ripple that compassion outwards, creating a more loving and supportive world for everyone.
So as we wrap up our exploration of self-compassion, I want to leave you with this thought. What if you stopped striving for perfection and started striving for kindness? Kindness to yourself and kindness to others.
It's a simple shift in perspective, but it has the power to transform your life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of self-compassion. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools for cultivating more kindness and understanding in your own life.